I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of perspective from when I grew up. I grew up in such a time that when 9/11 happened, I was in, I believe, the final year that I was in elementary school. Second to last, at the very least. I was in a very, very Christian school. And I remember when my mom picked me up from school and told me that we had just been attacked. It didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense to me at all. Granted, I was a child. I didn't have a concept for a not safe America yet, but it was so strange to me. But the one thing that I do remember from that time was the rabid patriotism. Holy fucking shit. If you were there when 9/11 happened, if you were there in the United States when, like, the year after everything went down, that was when suddenly we had Disturbed making shit tons of fucking pro-military propaganda. That was when we had every fucking country singer coming out and doing their biggest, most patriotic USA-isms, far more than when they actually became a more popular mainstream thing in retrospect. Like, we had America, USA flags, everything. And it was kind of inescapable. It was a thing that basically just pulled the entire country together. We had been attacked, and we were gonna retaliate. And then that war never ended. It just didn't fucking end. I went through my entire childhood with us at war. My cousin went into the Marines, went into the Middle East, and came back out, and we were worried that he was gonna die. My dad went on tours of duty there. And again, we always wondered if he was not gonna make it. Now, my experience as a kid was one where my time with my dad was fraught with a lot of friction. We had a lot of fights when I was growing up. And I remember my grandmother telling me, hey, you need to make peace with who your dad is. You need to make peace with your dad because based on the kind of job that he has, you never know when you might not see him again. Period. And that was something that really stuck with me. I didn't really become better about making peace with my own parents until I was an adult and started getting adult experiences, and that perspective made it way easier for me to kind of come to terms with why they were the people that they were. But for 20 years, for 20 fucking years, we were in the same goddamn war. It just became background information. It became so normalized that we were at war in the Middle East that when I found out that Biden had pulled our troops out of Afghanistan, you know, in the way that he did, that was not super ill-advised, and that the Taliban just kind of took over again as soon as we didn't have our military there propping up the proxy people that we had put up ourselves, it hit me that all of it was for fucking nothing. Sure, there was a moment, a long moment of my life where I was a 9/11 conspiracy theorist, because again, that was my childhood, and I remember feeling like, oh, well, our country attacked our country to go get oil. And I have friends who are in the military who have pointed out, like, hey, that's kind of partially true, but there's more to it than that. And the more to it than that, many of them have also pointed out, is classified, and they are not allowed to say. So there's that. But my perspective when Biden pulled everybody out of Afghanistan was that the thing that had been backdrop window dressing for most of my life was fucking worthless. There was no reason for us to have done it. Not at all. Nothing. even in the slightest bit, was worth the time that we had spent there. Everything went back to the status quo from before 2001, and all we had was a bunch of dead soldiers on our side, and dead militants, dead soldiers, and dead children and civilians on the other side. That was it. And it's not the first time America's had a war like that. I know that we've done the Korean War and Vietnam, and we've had our wars where we just kind of got our shit pushed in, for lack of a better term. I know that this is not a unique thing to Afghanistan, but that war was a failure. Dorita Dave says status quo before 2001. Not for us. For us, everything got worse. Yeah, for the United States, everything got way worse. We got the TSA, which has made every single bit of flight a fucking nightmare. All of your flights got more expensive. All of your flights became more of a headache. Every single way you want to go around the United States has sucked way more. We also got the Patriot Act. And I promise you this, the Patriot Act that was used as a justification to find terrorists in the United States, the Patriot Act can and will be used, and has been used, to be a first domino in surveilling the state even more than it already was. Every conversation we're having right now about Discord and COSA and all of that shit, the Patriot Act happened first. These things happened because we gave up our freedoms then. But I say we, I was a child. And even amongst the adults who gave up those freedoms around that time, I have a question. How many of them actually got a fucking say in that? Because again, the entire nation came together in this propagandic way where everybody seemingly was on the same page. And it's not to say that there weren't protests back then. There were. But that was not the perspective that you got when you watched the news. That was not the perspective you got when you talked to anybody about the fact that we were in the Middle East. The perspective you got was not one about the United States imperialism and how it's been overstretching that arm. The perspective you got was that we got attacked, so we cracked back with 1 billion times more power. Now, I also grew up with the Command & Conquer series. I grew up with Command & Conquer 1, a video game about the Brotherhood of Nod and the GDI, the Global Defense Initiative, going against each other. The GDI, of course, being the stand-in for the mixture of the United States and United Nations in some weird way, and the Brotherhood of Nod effectively being a culty religious terrorist organization. But then another game came out in the Command & Conquer series. Command & Conquer Generals. And Command & Conquer Generals, instead of being set in a contemporary version of the world where these evil space laser firing, like Kane, I'm sorry, but Kane is a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Absolutely. Sephi says, is that the one with the space beam? Yes, that is the one with the space beam. That's the Red Alert series for Command & Conquer. So, Command & Conquer was set in this contemporary universe where an evil, like, space laser firing dictator could try to do his shit. But when you got to Command & Conquer Generals, that was spent in, like, purely contemporary times. Command & Conquer Generals, you had the United States, you had China, and then you had the terrorists. The Arabic Muslim terrorists. That's all they were. They were just the terrorists. They didn't use power for any of their buildings. They had a immense need for resources. They could dig tunnels and all kinds of shit. And it was very obvious what they were. They were Command & Conquer's Al-Qaeda. They were Command & Conquer's Al-Qaeda. Around the same time, another video game that I grew to love, and a lot of my friends played with me, Halo, was about the United Nations military, or, you know, America's military, effectively, against a series of religious zealots. Yeah, that game 100% was informed by 9/11, I promise you. There is a reason that story resonated with people. So, fast forward to today, and over the weekend, during my birthday, not that matters at all. It's no longer my birthday, but I did take my birthday off. But effectively, right before that, we struck Iran. Now, it's not the only time that we've done that. We have 100% done that before. I believe it was like, last June or last July? But, this time feels a little different because this time, rather than having any conversations at all about, oh, well, there's a strike that happened now, and then there's going to be a strike back, and then that's it, everybody seems to be talking about this actively being a war that we have stepped into. Now, there are conversations to be had about how Trump effectively dragged us into a war with our current ally, Israel, against Iran, against our will, against the will of the people, and against the will of the Congress. I'm going to go ahead and let you know, all of that conversation is a goddamn smokescreen. All of it is. There is one side of this conversation that is very hawkish, very pro-war, but their problem is with procedure. You see, if he didn't file the right paperwork, then that's the real crime here, not the 150 children and women that were killed in the fucking strike. No, not them, no. And then there's another side of people who have argued that the Iranian people are actually thankful for the bombs that we dropped. I don't see how they would be, except for the fact that it seems to have been an attempt to do a regime change. Let's put a pin in that real quick. So, starting a war without congressional approval, yes, that is something that the president is not supposed to do. But again, I promise you, that is a smokescreen. The other smokescreen is saying, oh, yeah, no, we should have bombed Iran because we needed to change the regime there. Let's take a minute to talk about that. Let's take a minute to talk about regime change. The United States is bad at it. The times that the United States is able to do a regime change and do it well is usually when the United States is doing it covertly. And we've seen with Venezuela, they actually can do that to a degree. They can at least get a guy in power out of power by just yanking him out of the country. That's a thing we've shown we can do. We have propped up a bunch of proxy regimes in other countries. We have destabilized many regions. That is what we are good at. We are not good at bringing democracy to other countries. We are good at bombing them. We are good at destabilizing them and hoping to God that something will come out of the rubble. But remember when we pulled out of Afghanistan? It took only a couple weeks for the Taliban to take over again. It only took a few weeks for that. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. 20 years, 21 to be exact, of a regime change project, hoisted with the power of the force of the United States military, and we failed. 2/3 of my life, our country failed. And every dipshit on the right side of the aisle who says that, oh, well, a regime change was needed, so we needed to drop the bombs, every single one of those dipshits forgot that. Everybody that is angry that we got a Muslim mayor in New York is angry that we somehow forgot 9/11. Those same people forgot the side effects of 9/11 that we fucking failed with and failed at handling. But don't worry, guys. We'll be good this time. We'll definitely do it. Our bombs will bring democracy this time. There are two truths in this situation. Truth number one, Iran does need a regime change. Now, I am not a foreign policy YouTuber. Hell, I'm barely a political YouTuber. I cover the news, I cover politics, I cover things that I think are important to me, but I kind of stumbled into this haphazardly because of doing atheist YouTube, because it turns out that Christian bigots couldn't stop talking about trans people and gay people and all kinds of dumb shit. And so I just ended up having to talk about things that were politically adjacent until I was just talking about politics all the time. So I'm not an expert here. So if you go into my comment section and tell me exactly all of the ways that we should use to do a regime change, I am not the expert that is able to verify whether you are correct or incorrect. Outside of the scope of my expertise. But I can tell you that a regime that keeps its country as poor as Iran does, a regime that hurts its people the way that Iran does, a regime that hurts its LGBTQ community and fucking kills them the way Iran does, is not a regime that deserves to maintain its power. But again, we are not good at regime change with bombs. We've tried it. Doesn't fucking work for us. If it works this time, then but I don't see that happening. So that's truth one. Iran does need a regime change. Anybody that argues against that is actually arguing for trans people to get their heads cut off. That's just what it is. I hate to tell you that. Here's the other truth. Any argument about due process? Fucking stupid. Right now. This is not the first time that Trump has subverted due process to get what he wants done, and this will not be the last time. He will continue doing this over and over and over again. So maybe if we want to have conversations about regime change, there's somewhere we should be looking. Maybe there's a monster inside the fucking house we should be spending a little more time talking about. That's truth too. Now, where do we get with these two truths, that Iran needs a regime change, and the United States may also need one as well? Well, for now, it seems like I might not be talking about the Iran situation that much. Not because I don't care, but because I feel like that situation is not helped by Trump being in office. It is not helped by an army of yes men being under him, which they are right now. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and give my stance on everything as it sits. I am not an expert on foreign policy. I am not an expert on due process. I'm not an expert on anything like this. But I did live 21 years of my life watching us go and do a war that did fuck all nothing but kill Americans and kill citizens of another country with nothing to show for it. So I will say this, and I am not the only one to say this. In fact, I am actually ripping these words directly from another author, and I do not remember which one, so let me know in the comments section which one or which tens of ones happen to say this, but you will never in your life regret being against war. Because, as it turns out, the actual people that suffer in a war are not politicians. The people who order us to drop bombs are not the ones the bombs get dropped on. The people who order us to take up arms are never the ones taking up arms themselves. The people who get hurt in every one of these fucking scenarios, all of them are people like you and me. You can argue that the average Iranian citizen has a set of beliefs that is incompatible with Western yada yada yada. I don't give a shit. They're still people. At the end of the day, they are still women, they're still children, and there are still men who did not deserve to fucking die for the crime of existing. And if we actually are going to war, like Trump seems to think we're doing, while also going on record to say that, oh, the worst thing that could possibly happen is us having the same guy take over or another guy take over who does the same shit so that everything we did here was for nothing, I can just be incredibly frustrated. And maybe I'm off track from what I was saying a second ago. My brain does not hold on to thoughts for very long. Yeah, according to Pete Hexeth, it's a crusade. And where the fuck is it? I get to read shit like this. Hold on. This shit pisses me off. Ravi, thank you for the 100-bit cheer. I appreciate it. But here we go. Where did it go? I have a thing for this, and it is frustrating. We get military commanders telling people, yes, I don't know. We're not doing that, HuffPost. I'm not giving you fucking money. Stop asking. We have military commanders telling our own troops that bombing Iran is part of God's divine plan. For some U.S. military commanders, the emerging war in Iran is part of a biblical plan to bring about the end of the world as we know it. How many of you know about the Seven Mountains Mandate? How many of you are aware of that fucking cult? So I'll give you the short of it. Telltale can give you much better information than I can on it. But the Seven Mountains Mandate is basically, and this sounds conspiracy-brained as shit, but it is a group of religious nutcases that have political power and sway that infiltrate political organizations in order to try to bring about the end of the world through a United States allegiance with Israel to create a fucking New Jerusalem or some shit. Right? This shit has effectively infected our military. Which I'm not going to say it hasn't infected our military since Reagan, but if you don't believe me, there's literally an entire fucking Wikipedia article about the Seven Mountains Mandate and all the information on it tracing back to 1975, pointing out that it's a dominionist conservative Christian ideology that wants to dominate family, religion, education, media, arts, and entertainment, business, and government. And apparently, as of January 2024, there was a Denison University poll founding that 41% of American Christians believe in the proponents of the Seven Mountains Mandate. A thing that, make no mistake, will actually kick off the end of the fucking world. Because they believe that they're starting an apocalypse that will bring Jesus back. We're back to the atheism thing. These idiots believe that starting the next gigantic war with people having nuclear arsenals under the same principles that that Bush started a war, by the way. One of the reasons that Trump said he's starting this war is because Iran could not reach a nuclear deal with us, and he believes that they have weapons of mass destruction that they're going to fucking use on us. And I heard that line with Bush. I've already heard this line before. I've seen this movie. I saw how it ends. Why? Why are we doing this again? Does nobody, not a single person, learn from the most recent fucking history? There are people alive today who participated in that war. You mean it says war is good for business? Yeah. War is great for business. And I hate that. Haru says, I almost failed econ because I lived in a small town that's super Republican and I was anti-Bush. Jesus Christ. They tried failing you for being anti-Bush. It's Tuesday. And those of you who know me know that I go to a taco place on Tuesday. And there are interesting individuals that I hear when I am at that taco place. I sit at the bar and I listen to the people around me. And there was one lady at the bar today who was going off about who the Allied and Axis powers were this time. Basic ass fucking Americans right now are looking at this going, yep, there it is. I was wondering when the third one was going to get kicked off. I was wondering when we'd go to the next Great War. Now, whether or not the superpowers that need to collide... I fucking love Meteor Golem! Haru, thank you for the subscription. Massive Crippling Anxiety and Sudoku Gaming, thank you both for the follows. Now, for this to become a World War III, there needs to be two massive superpowers that are butting heads with one another. So unless the United States ends up going up against Russia or China, then it's not likely we're going to hit that World War III status. That said... that all depends on if Russia decides to align itself with Iran. I don't see why they would, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. Now, this is not the only hotbed that may start off World War III. Apparently, Taiwan is a very, very easy hotbed to start it because right now, Taiwan is an ally of the United States, and they provide us with a lot of pieces for our computer equipment. And that is one of the reasons we are actually in the process of trying to centralize a lot of that manufacturing in the United States so that we don't have to defend Taiwan if China decides to fucking invade them. That's a wild thought. That we have multiple possibilities to fucking spark off a World War III right now. And I've already had to live through this once. Granted, as a bystander that got to live with it as the backdrop of their life, as opposed to having to live through it because, you know, a regime is dropping bombs on my school. But I've already had to go through this once, and I saw how the story ended then. I am not confident it will end any fucking differently the second time. Though, for those of you who are more studious students of history than I, this is not the second time we have tried to do a regime change with bombs. Massive Crippling Anxiety says, I've lived through this stuff 3 times. Yeah. Those of you who pay more attention than I do, you have seen far more of this shit. Those of you who are older than me, you've seen far more of this shit. And those of you who pay attention more than me have noticed more of this shit. I'm tired. I was already tired when we were having to deal with Israel doing the full-on genocide of everybody in Gaza. I was already tired with our own regime trying to do its soft genocide of trans people. Did you know that Kansas just revoked every fucking driver's license for every person who is trans? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on with that? So now we got to talk about what we're going to do about it. So, let me go ahead and be perfectly clear. When I did my video on Friday, talking about Discord and the Costa stuff, that was a video that I did at the behest of Progressive Victory. Now, those of you who know my history with Progressive Victory know that I've really only done one major event with them. And that was when I went to go help campaign for Jamal Bowman. This video, however, is not done in partnership with them in any way, shape, or form. So I don't have to point you to Progressive Victory to try to do things about this. I think that there's certainly a helpful organization for trying to do shit about this, and there are some plans that their staff have in regards to this. But I think right now we can all agree that our current regime sucks. Our current regime does not have our best interests at heart, because our current regime wants to not only kill the sons and daughters of people across the fucking sea, but they want to send our sons and daughters in order to go do the killing. And make no mistake, whenever we do that, there is a non-zero amount of our Americans that fucking die. We've certainly gotten the death toll down lower for our side than in years past. But it doesn't change the fact that there is still an astronomical death toll to be seen. Master Crippling Anxiety says, yep, I saw that. I was like, what the fuck, really? This can't be real when I heard it? A Wild Nick says, yeah, and Lyft offered up to a $10 discount for trans people who need to fix their IDs. Yeah, Lyft is offering you a $10 discount so that you can spend money on Lyft because you can't legally drive to go change your ID. Our country is so convinced that it can be the police state for the rest of the goddamn world, and we can't fix basic shit like this. What the fuck are we doing? What the shit is America doing? And I'm not just saying Donald Trump. I'm talking about America, the country, the politicians, the ones at the local level, the ones at the fucking state level, the ones that are in Congress in Washington. Why is anybody okay with any of this shit? Why are we okay hurting the least of us in the United States? Why are we okay bombing everybody else in other countries? Why is that something you're okay with your tax dollars going for? And while I'm on that topic, why is it that any of us have to pay fucking taxes right now? Surely most of us don't fucking agree with what's going on with the government at the moment. I am an advocate for taxation. I am an advocate for money being spent where it can. But holy fucking shit! Every single one of us that wants to not spend $1 on a fucking Wizard video game so that the dipshit across the lake that actually strips trans rights from people, we try to make sure our dollars don't make it into her pocket, but we don't really get much of a choice when the dollars make it into the pocket of the orange guy that's going to fuck up all the rights here. Holy fuck. I was talking about what to do about this, and then I got off on another tangent. The DSA. For me, they recently opened up a location that's nearer to me, so maybe I'll be able to get a little more involved with them if I have the time. I've tried to have a much more healthy relationship with politics around me, and thus I typically don't have a ton of time available because I have already allocated it to other activities. I have an amount of time that is spent on political shit, and that amount of time is spent over here. But if you do have time, if you do have the spoons, I would highly suggest getting involved in your local DSA. I would highly suggest, if you can't get involved with your local DSA, if they are not an option in your area, to find your local Democratic group. You may have to shift your political needle, your political stomach a little further right to find yourself in a group where you can enact some kind of change. But right now, this is unfucking sustainable. We keep doing this shit. We keep doing this shit, and we are either going to eat ourselves up from the inside because of how much America, just as a fucking media org, turns us against each other, or the Fallout universe is going to actually be fucking true and Canada's going to attack us. I don't fucking know which. But this can't keep happening. If we are willing to bomb Iran to change a regime that is oppressing its people, and that can be a good thing, then what fucking happens when some other country that also has bombing capabilities, nuclear or otherwise, goes, oh, yeah, that's right. Regime change is a thing we can do with explosive devices, and suddenly the White House is cinders. This timeline sucks, y'all. And I don't mean for this to just be a depressive video. I don't. I wish that I could give you something more uplifting than we need to try harder, because the amount of effort it takes for somebody at the top to enact a plan that fucks us all is minuscule, and the amount of effort it takes from our side to roll that Sisyphus boulder up a fucking hill is massive. But we can't not push that boulder up that hill. I can't not make that video making my voice heard. I can't not advocate for a couple of the orgs that are trying to do at least something to fix this heinous shit. I can't not. Because I worry what kind of a country I'll have if I and hundreds or thousands of others simply don't. Simply let this next war fall into the background of our lives and just exist as a reality that we don't get to escape. And who knows? Maybe this will just be concluded in a fucking week. But remember, we were told the same thing about the war in Ukraine. That Russia didn't have the capability for a sustained war? Do you remember those conversations? Back in fucking 2021, 2022? That they wouldn't be able to do a sustained war for more than a couple weeks? And then it turned into more than a couple months? And now it's been more than a couple years and it's still going? It is amazing how much money can be scrounged up for fucking war. And we tell ourselves all kinds of lies to cope about it. On my end, I spend time working with a local political campaign, just doing videography for them. And right now, I've basically been doing it unpaid. I've not really been paid anything for that videography work. I've been told, on at least a couple separate occasions, that I may get paid, or that I will get paid at some point. But I do that work because I want to see some kind of change. I want to push the needle a little bit somewhere where I fucking can. Because I don't have the time or spoons to do a lot. But I can do a little. And as it turns out, if all of us do a little, if all of us push that needle a little bit, it will budge. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.